Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Chris Rodriguez. He is the CEO of IXL.co, a digital marketing demand generation agency. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you for having me, AJ. Excited to chat with you today.
You are welcome to the show. Chris, you are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We will be talking about digital marketing techniques for 2024. So, my first question to you, Chris, as a CEO of this, as an expert on digital marketing, is that should people start looking at digital marketing differently in 2024? We've just a few videos have gone by. How should they look at this aspect of whatever they are doing in business or as a freelancer or whatever they are doing?
I think one rule that will never change is you need to be able to generate returns from your efforts. The details are simply what is happening in 2024 that might differ in 2023. So obviously the big buzzword being artificial intelligence. It's important that you understand how that affects your digital marketing. For example, ways to use things like ChatGPT or Midjourney for your digital marketing creation, be it copywriting, be it image generation. That one is a absolute must in 2024. I would also say certain things that haven't changed would be the need to focus on conversion optimization. People work so hard to create awareness, to do podcasts just like this, AJ, generating traffic. But what if no one actually signs up or subscribes? So being very concerned about how to convert people, be it web traffic, be it a sale, that part has never changed, and it will continue to be important every day that you put any pennies or time towards your digital marketing.
Right, right. So, Chris, let's look at it from two aspects. One is a individual aspect. Someone who is doing work as a freelancer, as a small business, as an entrepreneur, startup, or as I said, a coach, freelancer, or anything. And then there is this big agency or a big firm. How should they uh, conduct their day-to-day work? Are the tools different now? What are the tools that they can look at in today's time? You talked about ChatGPT, you talked about Midjourney, but the needs are totally different. As an agency, how is 2024 impacting you? Are the needs of the clients changing in 2024? What is it that they are expecting that they were not expecting earlier on? Will a digital marketing agency will have to remodel itself? Will it all change? There are so many questions, but here they are all so interrelated, Chris. So I thought, why not put them together so that you can answer them at your own pace and help us understand from two aspects. One is a individual perspective, a freelancer perspective, a small business perspective, and someone from a larger who has got a bit of a budget on a larger
Sure.
level.
Well, I think the most important thing to recall is that people are coming to you, be it as a big agency or as an individual contractor or consultant. They're coming to you for your expertise to solve a problem that they cannot solve. So it really starts with having that expertise. And you need to understand certain channels, what their purposes are, why you would use one channel versus the next, and how to best maximize returns in that respective channel. So, for example, first let's talk about, I like to simplify digital marketing by free tactics and paid tactics. So first on free tactics, it's important to understand what makes SEO work, the specific keyword research, the technical implementation of SEO, such that when someone comes to you, be it a business or a consultant, and says, hey, I'm having an organic search problem, you actually can prescribe specific solutions, which would be finding the right keywords and being able to implement them in a technically appropriate way. You can be a big business or an individual contributor and still accomplish that goal. Second, for free tactics, cold email has often been, when done correctly, a very strong channel. However, in very short order, we're speaking today, AJ, in January 2024. Well, in as little time as February and March, the entire ecosystem of cold email will change. Google is pulling the rug out from under us and changing the
Right.
rules. So it behooves both large businesses and individual contractors to understand what those rule changes are and to understand how to best approach cold email in a different way than you would have historically. Things related to hyper personalization, making sure that that individual email is actually relevant for the person, that's not easy to do in a scalable way. And so, considering those factors, optimizing your email process accordingly, optimizing your list creation, your list optimization. This is all part of what it means to be an expert in 2024 at this particular tactic. All of that is to say, free approaches. One final free approach I would recommend is social media outreach. That is not necessarily a new concept. How often do we get direct messages, DMs from places like LinkedIn inbox, Twitter inbox, now known as X? Those places, there are still appropriate ways to approach prospecting with someone that you don't know, connecting with them, and then messaging them in an appropriate way. So those, I would argue, that the tactics haven't necessarily or I should say the channels haven't necessarily changed. It's more how you approach them needs to be more refined in 2024. All of that I would constitute as free tactics. There's, of course, paid tactics, right? So advertising in these various channels, search ads, Google search ads, Bing search ads, now known as Microsoft search ads. There's also social ads, LinkedIn advertising, Facebook and Instagram advertising, Twitter or X advertising, and more prominent in the last 1 to 2 years, TikTok advertising. It behooves you to understand what is the best medium to use, video, still image, in these respective channels. Some are better than others. There's, of course, YouTube advertising as well, which is often considered social advertising because it is a social-like, comment-like world. There's also different ad units to choose, whether they are video ads, still image ads, or my favorite ad unit, a lead generation ad, which is a pre-filled form that is already set up for success for conversion, as I started this whole chat with the focus on conversion optimization. The channels that have lead generation ads are Facebook and Instagram ads and LinkedIn ads. As you could attest, AJ, there's so much more we could cover, but I think that it's important to recall those specific things that I've mentioned here thus far.
Right, right, Chris. In terms of people say, be where your customers are. So, what are the tools that one way need to look at where customers are hiding? As you said about emails, now that's coming under a lot of scrutiny now in the next couple of months. So that thing is happening. In terms of cookies, so that part I don't understand. Emails I can understand a bit. So how does that impact? I still don't understand. But I get to understand it's about advertising and all. But if you can help us understand in a layman's terms that way. So what do I have as an individual, especially as a small business, to reach my customers? First, they were talking about, when there was social media marketing in terms of right hashtags. Then they were talking about keywords. Then they were talking about SEO. And now there are, now it was like be on as many platforms as possible. Then be on only some platforms where it works for you. And then podcast also came in between. Newsletters were there, but with this New email thing, now newsletter will also face that challenge. So help us understand what are the options for us to get to the customer, so that it is not called spam, and we are actually reaching the right customers without intruding into anyone's privacy also, because they may throw us out, or as spam or whatever. Help
Sure.
us understand what are the options I have, especially as a small business.
I think what matters is finding the exact right target market. So, to your point, AJ, understanding how to discover those people in different ways. First, every single one of us has an email address. And there are ways that you can discover someone's email address. There are technical tools that you can actually find someone's LinkedIn profile and, for a fee, determine how to extract their email address. There are also ways, which is quite prominent with lead generation, as they call them, specialists or experts that have an expertise in discovering target people's email addresses and then putting them in one large CSV or spreadsheet list for you to utilize. Those services are still very important and very prominent, and I call them the gasoline to the engine for any sort of outreach or targeting that you will be utilizing to create targeted awareness. So I encourage you all to understand how to actually satisfy the need to extract email addresses, what tools benefit you, what costs and budgets you have to do this type of service. There are enterprise costs, databases that cost 4, sometimes 5 figures. But there are also places where you can go on Upwork and find someone for a nominal fee to extract a specific list of LinkedIn query results and get you email addresses. I've used both tactics with success, depending on my budget or the client's budget. Separately, there are still target keywords that matter. That has never gone out of style. And whether you're doing organic search content for those keywords or paid search advertising for those keywords, it still behooves you to understand exactly what keywords people are searching for. As an analogy, if someone is looking for the word hello, maybe the search terms determine that it is more logical for you to target hi or hey. Just to be illustrative, to say you can say the same thing but differently and actually have a better permutation of that search term. Tools that I like to use are SEMrush, sometimes called SEMrush. I caution you, that is a paid tool, but it is particularly strong. And there is also another tool that I've used extensively called keywordtool.io. They are a freemium tool. They have a strong free version, but they have a particularly robust paid version. And you can search all kinds of keywords across many different platforms, as far and wide as Amazon keywords, YouTube keywords, etc. So the keywords matter, and by extension, people use the term hashtag for social media networks that utilize hashtags. But guess what? A hashtag is nothing more than a keyword with a hash in front of it. And so you still have to oblige to the methodology of researching keywords, in that sense, hashtag keywords, and understanding the volume and the competition of those respective words. Those tactics, I realize we're speaking on 2024. There is no magic bullet to say that all of a sudden these tactics are no longer relevant and there's suddenly new tactics that trump those other tactics. These approaches are still very relevant. It's just a matter of being very purposeful and intentional with your searches and focusing on the best bang for your buck, I like to say.
Right, right, Chris. You mentioned, when talking about this paid advertisement, talk about Google ads, and also talked about Bing ads, or Microsoft soft ads, if I heard you correctly.
Yes.
So earlier on, people were not mentioning about this. People were only focusing on just Google because it had this 80% or 90% of the market, and that's why. Why did you put so much of emphasis also on Bing ads or Microsoft ads? Will we see more of it in the coming days? If yes, why? Is it because of ChatGPT? Is it because of OpenAI? Is it because of their own Bing search engine? I want to understand that. Is it, and how different is it than Google in terms of as a search engine? Just to understand, are the results different? Sometimes we have seen some results different, but I want to get it from an expert like you.
Sure. So there are a few answers here. The first one is yes, Google search is 90 to 95% of the search engine usage. But one could argue 95 is not 100. So be sure that you encompass all of the searches, and Bing is clearly the second most relevant search engine. And so it behooves you to exist on that search engine. Second, uh, the actual utilization of Bing or Microsoft matters. And that is actually the default search engine, clearly, for all Microsoft products. So if you were to think one layer deeper about any industry that is focusing on Windows operating system, if you think about industries like law or legal, or certain government buildings or office buildings where they do not have a bunch of Apple computers on their in their office spaces. No, they have Windows. Some of them might even be as old school as still using XP operating systems, etc. It behooves you to understand that if your industry matters in those types of settings, then clearly Bing or Microsoft matters for you. And so it behooves you to operationalize there as well. And finally, yes, you mentioned, AJ, ChatGPT, and ChatGPT has been a recent addition to Bing search. And in my experience with my client roster, the total volume and therefore the clicks and the traction from Bing has exponentially increased solely because of the ChatGPT integration. And so with that, suddenly your digital stack is no longer just Google and Bing being a nice to have. You need to exist on both sides. I would also highlight one key difference between Google and Bing, which is Google is not just search ads. Google is also Google display ads and YouTube video ads, whereas Bing is solely Bing search ads. So there is no display ad nor video ad component to Bing, but nonetheless, for the search ads, it behooves you, for all the reasons I shared, to exist there and to be strategic there.
Right, right. Podcasting is growing. It is, though it's facing its own challenges. How do you want to? How do you see it or want to suggest to people who are looking to get some sort of advertising there or presence there on through podcasting, because that is a very big medium that is coming up? What would you like to say here? How can people make the best of advertising on podcasts? Help us understand on this.
Certainly, and it's not lost on me, AJ, that what I'm about to share can benefit you specifically and your excellent masterclass show. So podcasts are difficult to trace ROI because it is an audio medium. So the ways that you would traditionally track advertising on radio very much apply to podcasts. If there is an actual advertisement being vocalized, you can perhaps use specific codes or URLs to determine that someone specifically came from the podcast. You do, AJ, have an advantage for this being a digital medium because you are able to place digital links along your profiles and along your show links. So that can actually drive ROI as well. Other ways would be, for example, if you are listening to this podcast versus seeing the podcast, you would have two different experiences. So I'll quickly allude to each. First, on the visual component, you might not see this if you're listening, but there is a background that I have and a background that AJ has. So imagine the concept of product placement. You might be able to see here in the corner, I have a pillow representing a certain institution. I will
Absolutely.
readily admit they did not pay me for that placement, but imagine if they did. That would be a way to do product placement for the podcast. And so, standard sponsorships, you could search out people who wanted to perhaps, quote, buy that ad unit to place their product. Maybe I would have a soft drink here, sitting here, for example, or wearing a specific hat. Those are ways that you can generate revenue for your podcast. Also, for those of you that are listening audio only, obviously, if I were to be able to say some sort of a brand, or if AJ was able to say some sort of a brand, there's the ability to sell that unit. So those are ways that you can monetize your podcast. Now, of course, easier said than done. You have to actually have an audience built in the first place to be able to share those opportunities to brands. But AJ, you have a very respectable audience, as well as many different distribution platforms. And so to compile all of that in a one sheet and then go out to various different brands, there are certainly brands that can benefit from awareness through the KAJ Masterclass. So it would be similar to any sort of sales outreach where you have a lead list and you're saying we represent tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of listeners, of viewers. Would you be interested in a 30-second slot, a 60-second slot? Would you like me to wear your hat? And actually monetize each of these and offer them to the respective brands.
Right, right, Chris. I want to understand from a small business perspective, how should they look at this opportunity called podcast? How can they make the best use in terms of their marketing efforts, include it and get the best out of this? Because it is just the beginning of this podcast industry and it might not cost them too much. How can they make the best use of this? Apart from, podcast guesting and all, but in terms of advertising and anything else that is possible on podcast for them.
Certainly. Well, the first thing to know is that it is never been easier to create podcast level content. I'll just continue to utilize this exchange right here, AJ, you and I, as an example. You are utilizing a particular technology to record your podcasts, in this case, StreamYard. There are other types of alternatives like Riverside or others. And so, obviously, being able to set yourself up by recording with the technology is the first step. The second step is to actually find relevant content and relevant people to record in the first place, right? I'm very grateful and humbled that we were able to connect in this way. And obviously, the further that you reach out to experts in the industry, the more captivating your content shall be. Now, let's assume you've recorded the content and found some topic, some relevant topic or a relevant person to record. What to do then? So there are ways to distribute your content, be it across all of the different podcast channels, also through social media by documenting and archiving this particular recording and all of the other ones that you've done, making sure you write the correct titles. And by correct, I mean keyword research, as I alluded to before, to make sure that that is a relevant title for your show, writing a relevant description, distributing it on YouTube, uploading natively to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, etc. And now making sure that as long as everything is tagged correctly or written with the right keywords, you have your discoverability intact. You can then decide, do I want to promote this via advertising to give it a boost? And if you were to do that, you're then reaping the benefits of not only having set yourself up organically for success, but also now promoting based on the strength of the targeting capabilities of these respective channels. LinkedIn, you can target by job title, you can target by interest group. For Facebook, you can target by interest group, you can target by regions, perhaps to your audience located in India, or perhaps the exact opposite, to target outside of India to create more awareness in different locations. So you have that strength of being able to choose between organic approaches and paid approaches.
Right, right, Chris. Now coming back to your company, ixl.co, help us understand more about your company, how you do, what you do, and how do you differentiate in today's market when most of the tools are also available to an individual or a company. So how
Sure.
do you differentiate in today's time?
Sure. So I'll tell you quickly not only about IXL, but about my digital marketing process. So I've been digital marketing for 20 plus years across many different industries, having served from the bottom of a marketing department at a tech startup to running the marketing department at tech startups. And then about 4 to 5 years ago, fleshing out on my own to start my consulting. My consulting agency called IXL.co has since grown to be considered a boutique agency with many different full-time employees as well as contractors with respective expertise. I like to consider us a unique proposition on the market because we perform at the highest caliber levels while also not necessarily charging at the level of an enterprise level agency. And so for many different companies, that type of experience is actually exactly what they're looking for. They want what we call white glove treatment, one-to-one treatment from industry experts, someone who's been doing advertising for 20 years, email marketing for 20 years, Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager for 20, 15, 10 years. So we are pridefully employing experts, and that is our differentiation on the market. So if a business is interested in having someone or a company like ours handle their marketing with a level of expertise that they, with respect, would not have based on our experience, that is where a company like IXL.co thrives on the market.
Right, right. So there is much to learn about digital marketing. Some you have already spelled out, but in these times, every day is a new day, and every day there is a new tool or new development happening. Especially when artificial intelligence is there. So for people who want to learn more about you, about the changes in digital marketing, and also those who want to engage with your company, what is the best way for them to do so, Chris?
Yeah, so our company's website is ixl.co. The letter I, the word Excel, EXCEL.co, to be clear, not .com. And I am also quite prominent on LinkedIn. My username is Chris Excel, CHRISEXCEL. And I welcome all connection requests, and I'm happy to answer questions and jump on calls.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you, AJ.
You too.